Canada over the US, 34 points to 21 in their World Cup qualifying match. Just watched that game this morning over here in New Zealand. I'll go through some of my thoughts on the game. There's no stats, unfortunately. I did write down a few things. But yeah, there's no official stats keeper for this game. Pretty hard game to kind of get access to if you're outside the US and Canada, seemingly. I had to go through some trickery to get this game, which was unnecessarily difficult. I mean, who's not interested in the Rugby World Cup qualifying game, man? I mean, the crowd was pretty good. Small ground, but good crowd, very vocal. I'd never seen a game played in Newfoundland before, so that was a first. For me, very windy. Goodness gracious, even the microphone, they need to put like a dead cat or whatever it is on that thing, because, yeah, very, very windy. Maybe it was just that windy that even the audio suppressing stuff wasn't able to kill the wind, because, yeah, very, very windy. Seemingly a big crosswind, which was like affecting the play. And there's dudes in t-shirts there as well, so maybe that's just a Newfoundland thing. I don't know. But, yeah, the game itself, like I said, the wind was a factor. It started like with a kick out on the full from Canada, which put themselves under a heap of pressure. Remember, Canada hadn't beaten the US for ages going into this game. And then basically from the first maul of the game, the Canadians conceded a penalty. And then from the second maul, they conceded a penalty try. So it's 7-0 to the States within like 2 minutes. Heaton gets yellow carded for illegal play at the maul. And it's looking like it's going to be a very long day for the Canadian guys, man. Like the way they would try to stop that maul, it was horrendous early. So yeah, America looking absolutely in charge. Canada man down 7-0. But interestingly, during that yellow card period, man, the Canadians really fronted up, which was pretty pleasing to see. They got back through a try through Corey Thomas. That one was the Americans conceding a penalty, the Canadians mauling it, and then going through some phases to eventually brush the line. Quattrin had a good run in the build-up. But yeah, 7 points apiece. And then like the yellow card finishes 7 points to 0 to the Canadians. So really good period. Like Nelson was kicking really well. That left foot in the first half kicking kind of with the breeze into touch, was getting some serious distance off that boot. To be fair, the US maul had gone very close before the end of the yellow card. But like right as it got to the line, they ended up knocking it on. So kind of a missed opportunity for the States, like right before the yellow card was over. The Canadian lineout at one point went not straight. I think there was the first one, because I was actually thinking it was almost like the game played out as I was just thinking stuff would happen. I was thinking, man, the wind's really strong. How come these guys aren't having issues with the throw-ins? But as the commentators mentioned, the wind was kind of side to side, so it's not like the lineouts were being pulled one direction or another. It was either it'll be shorter than you think because you're throwing into the wind, or longer than you think because you're throwing with the wind. But as I was thinking that about the lineout issues not seemingly being a problem, because they were 100% at that point, Canada had their first kind of lineout fail, and then Canada conceded a scrum penalty. So both aspects of their set piece started to kind of look a bit creaky. But to be fair, the Canadian scrum held up for the most part, and it was the American lineout that was really, really atrocious. But anyway, 17 minutes, there was a Maggie high tackle, and Nelson took a penalty shot again with that huge wind, and he nailed it to make it 10 points to 7. So the Canadians went in front. And on 19 minutes, the TMO had to have a look at a tackle from Keys. And it's one of the most bizarre kind of TMO decisions you've ever heard. Hold on, there's a fly buzzing around my living room. Where was I? It's kind of appropriate that I just stopped this video to get a fly out of my living room, because that's kind of similar level of I don't want to say ingenuity, because I would just open the door to let it fly out, but they had to use a cardboard box to shield the TV monitor on the side of the field so the ref could see the tackle replayed. They did have a TMO available for the ref, but because the sun was so bright and they just had this monitor out on the side of the field, there was a lot of glare. they were like someone was holding a cardboard box to try and shield the light. Like crazy stuff. Like I don't know if I mentioned it, but like if you tried to play a hockey match over here in New Zealand, you'd be at a pretty basic facility. So it's kind of no surprises that, I mean, Newfoundland probably doesn't get international rugby all that much, so it's kind of not surprising they don't have a TMO in his own box. You wouldn't get the reverse, if you had a ice rink over here in New Zealand. So it was just bizarre. It really was bizarre. But anyway, it's another yellow card for the Canadians after that shot being high. So it's another period where the Canadians are down to 14 men. The US tried another maul, and it caused the Canadians to concede another penalty. And the ref, man, he wasn't having a bar of it because he warned the Canadians. That's like 3 penalties for maul infringements. You've already had a penalty try. If you do it again, you're going to get another yellow card. And they've already got a guy in the bin. This is virtually like a minute later. But the Canadians, because Rumble said, "Can I talk to my guys?" The ref says yes. Whatever he said must have worked some magic because they managed to hold up the next US maul about 5 meters out. And they were kind of lucky about the law changes that it's now a dropout rather than a 5 meter scrum, right? Because it means the Canadians are able to get out of town instead of having to defend a scrum. And based on that first scrum, it looked like the American pack would have rolled them. The Canadian scrum did front up a lot better, but based on that one sample at the time, it looked like the Americans would have been, positioning for a quite possible try. But it's a good escape for the Canadians there, and the crowd's absolutely loving it. The crowd's really kind of building into the game at that point there. As I mentioned, kind of small crowd, but very vocal. Canada get another penalty, and they opt for the shot. It's during the yellow card. It's a tough kick. This one they do miss. It's the only miss of the game for Nelson. He pushes it wide. He tries to adjust for the wind, but it still drifts too far right. But it does take a minute off the yellow card, which is a good bit of play. 25 minutes, Coates regathered a high ball, and the States conceded another breakdown penalty. Coates is a proper little live wire player, so good to see him getting some game time. And the Canadians at breakdown I thought were really effective. They went for a 5 meter line out. Their maul was looking initially very good. But the US guys managed to front up and kind of stop that one to win a maul turnover. Now, they mentioned at the start of the game the law changes, one of them being the 50-22 kick. We did see a couple of those in this game. The first one on 30 minutes, it was Luke Carty, again, using that wind to his advantage. He put a really nice kick through to ensure that the American guys got the line-out throw. The yellow card's over at that point, and the Canadian maul is able to win a turnover from that line-out maul. So it's at that point I wrote, like, Canadian maul defense is improving. Wish the US would try a set play, because the US guys would just go and line up maul, line up maul, line up maul. I mean, initially they had great success with it. Why wouldn't you, right? But you do need to vary it up a little bit, I guess. Especially as the Canadian maul defense is starting to really tighten up. And to their credit, they actually did. When they next had a line-out maul, they tried a set play, and Fernanda Schultz managed to go over like 2 phases later. Like the whole Canadian pack was set and ready to shove. So nobody was ready to kind of break off. And sure enough, they couldn't kind of stop the American guys from going over. So that try in 34 minutes put the States back in front, 14 points to 10. Dolan went off for a tackle in the air from the restart after that try, which is unfortunate because he fails his HIA. And it looks like it's a pretty bad one. I think it's Heaton. But as I saw it and the ref called it, the lifters didn't let him down. The lifters held him there. You can't do that. When a guy's lifted up, you got to bring him straight down. So I guess that's why Heaton kind of only gets penalised for that one. Yeah, so because he's already had a yellow card, you wouldn't want him getting a second because then he'd be gone for the game. So but unfortunate for Dolan because he ends up not coming back on, and he's kind of a key man. The commentators reckon that's why the American lineout struggled so much. But anyway, 40 minutes right before halftime, Carty gets another 50-22 just before halftime. It was a great kick with no angle, but there's nothing to it. I think they lose the lineout again. I counted 6 lineouts that the States missed off their own throw in this game. 6 lineouts. I don't know how many lineouts were in the game. I was only counting the misses because I knew there probably wouldn't going to be stats on this game. 6 lineouts. The Canadians had 2 the whole game. And I'm not even including ones where there was one where the States secured the ball and then bobbled it or lost it very quickly. At least they secured the ball. That's just, did you get the ball at lineout? 6 times, no. Way too many. Way too many. I would imagine it's probably like a 60% lineout success rate, maybe, if I had to hazard a guess. Didn't write down every single lineout, but anyway. Second half, Canadians come out firing, man. Rumble gets a try. Again, it's a heap of Canadian phases. Start of the second half really cracking, and it's 17-14, so Canada back in front. US win a penalty in the Canadian half, opt for touch, and then kick it dead. So there's a few times in this game where the Americans, like I mentioned, that knock on from the maul, like 5 meters out. There are multiple times where they missed the line out, so that they did miss a lot of chances. Canada had an attacking maul on 46 minutes. That one they got pinged for kind of not binding properly. So again, both sides maybe a little bit lacking in execution there. But what wasn't lacking execution was Lesage's try on 52 minutes. That one was, again, a heap of faces from Canada. That started from Heaton, I think, putting a kick through. Proper bit of madness. So 24-14. At 24-14, I'm thinking, man, Canada might actually win this because they're supposed to lose according to all the pre-match stats and history and bookies and everything. I wrote Canada seemed more desperate for the loose balls. Maybe it's just sometimes you get the luck of the bounce, but guys were throwing themselves. Like Nelson did it once, Coates did it once. Just loose balls. Just I think that guy Webster did it once. Like just throwing themselves on any loose balls. Like kind of really, really brave stuff, putting their bodies on the line. 62 minutes, Canada opted for 3. It was a tough kick, but Nelson nailed that one. He was having a really good game, 27-14. And a huge, huge play on 67 minutes. That's when I wrote game is over, because the Americans are knocking on the door. They're going, again, phase after phase. And then when they try to spin it wide, I think the second ball off 9, Webster, debut game, man, gets an intercept, just goes length of the field, and that's it, man. That's the game. That's the game. 34 points to 14. The States aren't coming back from 20 points down with 10 minutes to go. Even the Canadian scrum on 74 minutes, a huge scrum. Once the Americans have brought on their big guns, from the bench, they managed to win a huge scrum penalty. So I'm thinking this is quite an incredible performance from the Canadian guys. They did put a bit of pressure on to maybe push for one more try, the Canadians, but eventually got a penalty conceded. They got March 10. There was a penalty at the breakdown, March 10 for not releasing the ball by the ref. Dyer went over for the States, but then they got called back for obstruction. But they did get that kind of consolation try through Lepetti after the 80-minute mark. It's a penalty conceded, kicking for touch, line out, and go through the face. Again, not going for that kind of set maul. They kind of got it wide and went through those phases. So, I mean, it's key for the points difference, if nothing else. Like, the game was done and dusted, but the States guys needed to keep fighting because there is a second game where they can try and overhaul this points difference. And it's now not 20 points they need to try and overhaul, so it's a lot more kind of manageable for them. But yeah, like I mentioned, 6-2, I think, was the lineouts missed. 6 by the States, very costly. The goal kicking from Nelson was really spot on. He just missed that one kick despite the wind. The States, I don't think, missed any kicks. They didn't have to kick a conversion for the penalty try, and then 2 conversions. Pretty straightforward ones, but job done there. Scrum penalties considered, I think it was 2 by Canada, 1 by the States. So it actually didn't end up being kind of a huge difference maker, even if you thought, like, based on that first scrum, that the Canadian guys might be in trouble at scrum time anyway. But yeah, Canada, man, I wrote intensity, able to adapt to the US maul, their breakdown work, Nelson and Keys, Rumble. Even Lloyd, the winger, looked pretty sharp. Coates, like a lot of key performers for the Canadian guys, man. Absolutely top stuff. The States had some chances. Their lineout was terrible. They lacked a bit of continuity. I mean, Cardi at fullback had a pretty big boot, but if the lineout's not able to convert those 50-22s, then it's going to be a long day at the office. But yeah, it's only one game. They still have another chance. The States seem to perform a lot better at home, so we will see how things go. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the next game, man. I'm going to have to call upon somebody to maybe send me a copy, because it doesn't look like the way I watched it today will be viable for next week. But fingers crossed I can find a way to watch it. But yeah, unnecessarily difficult. But yeah, as I said, good crowd. The camera work at times was a bit different. Again, it'd be like if you asked the New Zealand cameraman to film hockey, they probably wouldn't know quite where to point the camera at times. Like there were times when there was a break down the wing and the camera wasn't even pointing at the ball carrier for a few seconds. There was one kick that went, you thought it was going to go long, but it pretty much went straight up, but the camera went where he thought the ball was going to go. So there's a few moments like that. But again, I'm just happy to be watching rugby. I managed to get the game on the tally, so I'm not complaining. Yeah, I was pretty chuffed. Good crowd, very vocal, and a good win for Canada. I'll stop rambling. It's been 15 minutes. You guys let me know your thoughts on the game. How you think this sets up the next game between these two teams. Do you think the States bounce back? Or do you think Canada can actually push on and kind of keep their points difference ahead? Either way, you guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later.